The invisible frequency, when your body hears what your ears cannot welcome. Pause for a moment, close your eyes and breathe slowly. Right now, in this very instant, your body is receiving signals that your conscious mind has never acknowledged. These are not sounds in the traditional sense. They are vibrations moving through the air at frequencies so low that your ears cannot register them as sound, yet every cell in your body feels them with absolute clarity. This is the world of infrasound, and it has been shaping your perception of safety, danger, and reality itself for your entire life without your knowledge. Have you ever walked into a room and felt an overwhelming sense of unease, even though nothing visible was amiss? Have you experienced that inexplicable dread in certain buildings, particular times of day, or specific natural environments? The answer may not lie in your imagination or intuition alone. Your nervous system is tuned to frequencies that exist below the threshold of human hearing, vibrations that operate at 20 Hz and below. While your ears cannot consciously process these oscillations, your body's sensory systems are exquisitely sensitive to them. These invisible waves bypass your conscious awareness entirely and speak directly to the ancient parts of your brain that govern survival, fear, and the detection of threat. Before we begin this exploration together, I invite you to subscribe to the Relaxing Science channel. Give this video a like and share with us in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is there. Your presence here matters, and your engagement helps us continue bringing you these deep explorations of science and consciousness. The journey we are about to take together is one of discovery and gentle understanding. We will explore how military researchers have studied infrasound as a tool of psychological influence for decades. We will examine the mechanisms by which a simple vibration in the air can activate your amygdala, trigger primitive instincts, and even create genuine hallucinations without the use of any chemical substance. We will understand why certain spaces make you feel observed, why storms trigger primal fear responses, and why silence itself can become a source of profound unease, or alternatively, deep peace. This is not a story designed to frighten you. Rather, it is an invitation to understand the invisible landscape in which you live. Knowledge is the foundation of freedom. When you understand how infrasound influences your perception, you reclaim agency over your own nervous system. You move from unconscious reaction to conscious awareness. You transform from a being who is passively affected by invisible forces into a person who understands, adapts, and ultimately finds peace within the vibration itself. Infrasound exists all around us in nature. The rumble of distant thunder that you feel in your chest before you hear the sound. The pressure waves created by ocean waves crashing against cliffs kilometers away. The subtle oscillations produced by wind moving through forests and across open plains. Earthquakes generate infrasound frequencies that travel through the earth and air long before the shaking becomes visible. Whales communicate across entire oceans using frequencies so low that they can be detected thousands of kilometers away. Elephants produce infrasound calls that travel through the ground, allowing them to communicate with herd members beyond the horizon. These are not anomalies, they are fundamental aspects of how our planet communicates with itself. Your body is a resonating instrument. Every organ, every tissue, every system within you vibrates at specific frequencies. Your heart beats in rhythms that can synchronize with external vibrations. Your brain operates through electrical oscillations that can entrain to environmental frequencies. Your nervous system evolved over millions of years in a world saturated with infrasound, and it developed exquisite sensitivity to these invisible waves as a survival mechanism. When your ancestors heard the low rumble of a predator approaching, they did not consciously hear a sound. They felt a vibration that triggered an immediate cascade of protective responses. Their pupils dilated, their muscles tensed, their breathing changed, their attention sharpened. They moved towards safety without needing to understand why. This ancient system is still active within you today. Even in our modern world of concrete buildings, electric lights, and digital screens, your nervous system remains fundamentally tuned to the frequencies of nature. When infrasound enters your environment, whether from a passing storm, a malfunctioning mechanical system, or a deliberately generated frequency, your body responds with the same protective mechanisms that kept your ancestors alive. Your conscious mind may have no explanation for the sudden anxiety, the feeling of being watched, or the sense of dread that washes over you. But your body knows. Your body has always known. The science of infrasound reveals something profound about the nature of perception itself. We tend to believe that we perceive reality through our five senses. We see with our eyes, hear with our ears, touch with our skin, taste with our mouth, and smell with our nose. Yet infrasound demonstrates that there are entire dimensions of reality that our conscious awareness cannot access, even though our bodies respond to them with absolute certainty. This suggests that what we call reality is not a complete picture. It is merely the slice of existence that our conscious mind has been equipped to process. Beyond this slice lies an infinite landscape of vibrations, frequencies, and forces that shape our experience moment by moment, even as we remain unaware of their presence. As we move forward through this exploration, you will discover how this invisible world operates. You will learn the specific mechanisms by which infrasound triggers fear responses in your brain. You will understand why military organizations have invested decades of research into harnessing infrasound as a tool of psychological influence. You will explore the connection between these invisible vibrations and the experiences of feeling haunted, watched, or profoundly unsafe in certain environments. You will also discover how understanding infrasound can transform these experiences into opportunities for deeper awareness and genuine peace. This video is designed to be experienced in a state of openness and relaxation. If you find yourself becoming anxious as we explore these topics, remember that knowledge itself is protective. There is nothing to fear in understanding. The goal is not to alarm you, but to illuminate the invisible landscape in which you live, so that you can move through it with awareness, resilience, and peace. Breathe gently. Allow yourself to receive this information at your own pace. You are safe, and you are not alone in this exploration. Millions of people around the world are beginning to understand these invisible frequencies, and in that understanding, we all move toward greater freedom and awareness. The ancient alarm. Why infrasound triggers primal fear. Imagine traveling backward in time, not through centuries, but through evolutionary layers of your own nervous system. Deep within your brain, beneath the areas responsible for language, logic, and conscious thought, lies a region that has remained largely unchanged for millions of years. This is the limbic system, and specifically within it, a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. This ancient part of your brain is not concerned with understanding the world. It is concerned with one fundamental question. Is this safe or is this dangerous? Your amygdala does not require conscious input to make this determination. It does not need you to see a threat clearly or to hear a warning explicitly. Instead, it monitors your environment continuously, detecting patterns and signals that your conscious mind might entirely miss. When it detects something that matches its internal database of danger, it initiates a cascade of protective responses before you even have time to think. Your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid, your muscles tense, your pupils dilate, your mind becomes hyper-focused on the perceived threat. This is the fight or flight response, and it has kept your species alive for an almost incomprehensible span of time. For millions of years, your ancestors lived in environments saturated with infrasound. The roar of predators produced low-frequency vibrations that traveled through the air and ground. The rumble of earthquakes generated infrasound frequencies that preceded visible shaking by seconds or minutes. Thunderstorms created pressure waves that moved through the atmosphere in the infrasound range. Volcanic eruptions produced infrasound that could be detected thousands of kilometers away. Your ancestors did not consciously hear these sounds, but their bodies felt them. And when the body felt infrasound, it meant something significant was happening in the environment, something that required immediate attention. Over millions of years, this became embedded in your nervous system at the deepest level. Infrasound became a trigger for the amygdala. When your ancient brain detected infrasound frequencies, it sent a message to the amygdala that essentially said, something significant is happening. Be alert. Be ready to respond. This was not a learned response. It was not something that could be easily overridden by logic or conscious reasoning. It was a fundamental wiring of your nervous system, as basic as your heartbeat or your breathing. The problem is that this ancient alarm system has not evolved significantly in the modern world. Your amygdala still responds to infrasound exactly as it did when your ancestors lived on the African savanna. When infrasound enters your environment today, whether from a thunderstorm, a passing truck, a malfunctioning mechanical system, or a deliberately generated frequency, your nervous system treats it with the same urgency it would have treated a charging predator 50,000 years ago. Your conscious mind may have no explanation for the sudden anxiety or sense of dread. You may search your environment for a visible threat and find nothing. Yet your body remains in a state of alert, convinced that something dangerous is near. This disconnect between what your conscious mind perceives and what your nervous system detects is the source of much confusion and distress in the modern world. You feel afraid, but you cannot explain why. You feel watched, but no one is there. You feel a sense of impending doom, but nothing concrete justifies this feeling. Your logical mind becomes frustrated with your body's response. You might even begin to doubt your own perception. Yet your body is not malfunctioning. It is simply responding to information that your conscious mind cannot access. It is responding to infrasound. The frequencies that trigger the strongest amygdala responses are generally between 5 and 20 Hz. Within this range, certain frequencies appear to be particularly potent. Research has shown that frequencies around 7 Hz can trigger feelings of unease and dread in many people. Frequencies around 19 Hz have been associated with increased anxiety and a sensation of presence as if someone or something is nearby. These are not arbitrary numbers. They appear to be frequencies that have been particularly significant throughout human evolution. They are frequencies that consistently appear in natural phenomena associated with danger. The way infrasound triggers the amygdala involves a pathway that is faster than conscious perception. Sound waves enter your ear and are processed by the cochlea. For audible frequencies, this information travels to the auditory cortex in your brain, where it is consciously processed. But infrasound operates differently. While your ears cannot consciously hear infrasound, your body can feel it. The vibrations from infrasound are detected by pressure receptors throughout your body, by your inner ear's vestibular system, and by specialized sensory nerve endings distributed throughout your tissues. This information travels directly to your brainstem, and from there to your amygdala, bypassing the conscious processing centers of your brain entirely. This is why infrasound can trigger fear responses that feel inexplicable. Your amygdala has received information about a potential threat before your conscious mind even has a chance to evaluate the situation. By the time you become aware that you are afraid, your nervous system has already initiated a full protective response. Your heart is already racing, your breathing is already shallow, your muscles are already tense. Your conscious mind then spends energy trying to figure out why you feel this way, even as your body continues to respond to the infrasound stimulation. This ancient alarm system served a vital function for millions of years. It allowed your ancestors to respond to threats faster than conscious thought could operate. It saved countless lives. Yet in the modern world, this same system often causes unnecessary suffering. You are triggered by infrasound from a passing storm, and you experience hours of anxiety. You are exposed to infrasound from a faulty air conditioning unit, and you develop a persistent sense of unease in your home. You are in a building that resonates at an infrasound frequency, and you feel watched and threatened by nothing tangible. Understanding this mechanism is profoundly important because it allows you to begin to separate your automatic nervous system response from actual threat. When you feel afraid or anxious without a clear external cause, you can now recognize that your amygdala may be responding to infrasound. This recognition does not eliminate the response, but it contextualizes it. Your nervous system is not malfunctioning. You're not losing your mind. You are simply experiencing the ancient alarm system responding to information that your conscious mind cannot detect. This knowledge itself becomes a tool for managing the response, for breathing through it, and for returning to a state of calm once the infrasound stimulus has passed. Mapping the nervous system, how low frequencies bypass consciousness. Your nervous system is not a single unified structure. It is more accurately understood as a vast network of interconnected systems, each with its own specialized function, yet all working in concert to maintain your survival and well-being. To understand how infrasound bypasses your conscious awareness and directly influences your emotional and physical state, it is necessary to map this network and trace the pathways through which infrasound travels from the external environment into the deepest chambers of your brain. At the most basic level, your nervous system divides into two major branches. The central nervous system consists of your brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system consists of all the nerves that branch out from your brain and spinal cord to reach every part of your body. Within the peripheral nervous system, there is a further division. The somatic nervous system controls your voluntary movements and transmits sensory information from your skin, muscles, and joints. The autonomic nervous system controls your involuntary functions, such as your heart rate, breathing, digestion, and the release of hormones. This autonomic nervous system is further subdivided into the sympathetic nervous system, which activates your fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which activates your rest and digest response. When infrasound enters your environment, it does not follow the typical pathway of sound. Sound waves that fall within the range of human hearing are captured by your outer ear, funneled down the ear canal, and strike the eardrum. The eardrum vibrates, and this vibration is transmitted through 3 tiny bones in your middle ear to the cochlea, a spiral-shaped structure filled with fluid. Within the cochlea, these vibrations are converted into electrical signals that travel along the auditory nerve to the auditory cortex of your brain, where they are consciously perceived as sound. This is the pathway for conscious hearing. Infrasound, however, operates through a different gateway. The vibrations that constitute infrasound are too low in frequency to be processed by your cochlea in a way that produces conscious hearing. Yet your body can still detect these vibrations through multiple alternative pathways. The first of these is through your skin and soft tissues. Your entire body is covered with pressure receptors, specialized nerve endings that detect mechanical stimulation. These receptors are not particularly sensitive to high-frequency vibrations, but they are exquisitely sensitive to low-frequency vibrations. When infrasound passes through your environment, it creates pressure waves that compress and decompress the air around you. Your skin and tissues detect these pressure changes directly. The second major pathway through which infrasound is detected is through your vestibular system. Located in your inner ear, just behind your cochlea, your vestibular system is responsible for your sense of balance and spatial orientation. It contains specialized structures filled with fluid and lined with hair cells that detect motion and acceleration. These hair cells are particularly sensitive to low-frequency vibrations. In fact, the vestibular system's frequency range of peak sensitivity extends well into the infrasound range. When infrasound frequencies pass through your environment, your vestibular system detects them and sends information to your brain about movement and spatial positioning, even though you are not consciously aware of any movement. The third pathway involves your internal organs. Many of your organs, including your lungs, heart, and abdominal organs, contain air spaces or fluid-filled cavities. These cavities can resonate at specific frequencies, amplifying vibrations that match their natural resonant frequency. When infrasound frequencies match the resonant frequency of an organ, that organ begins to vibrate in synchrony with the external frequency. Your nervous system detects this internal vibration, and this detection triggers responses in your autonomic nervous system. All of this sensory information from these alternative pathways converges in your brainstem. Your brainstem is the most ancient part of your brain, the structure that evolved first and that you share with virtually all other vertebrate animals. It is here that your basic life functions are regulated. Your breathing, your heart rate, your blood pressure, and your basic survival responses are all coordinated from your brainstem. It is also here that the amygdala receives rapid, pre-conscious information about potential threats. This is where the crucial divergence occurs. Information detected by your conscious sensory systems travels to your sensory cortex, where it is processed consciously before being evaluated by your amygdala. But information detected by your pressure receptors, vestibular system, and organ resonance travels directly to your brainstem and from there to your amygdala, without passing through your conscious sensory processing centers. Your amygdala receives this information and makes an immediate assessment. Is this safe or dangerous? If your amygdala determines that the incoming information represents a potential threat, it immediately initiates a cascade of responses. It sends signals to your sympathetic nervous system, triggering the release of adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. It sends signals to your hypothalamus, which controls hormone release throughout your body. It sends signals to your motor cortex, which causes your muscles to tense. It sends signals to your brainstem, which alters your breathing and heart rate. All of this happens before your conscious mind has even registered that something is occurring. Your conscious mind becomes aware of these physical changes. Your heart is racing. You are breathing rapidly. Your muscles are tense. You feel anxious and afraid. You look around your environment to find the source of the threat, but you see nothing unusual. You might see a clear sky, a calm room, or any number of benign surroundings. Your conscious mind becomes confused. Why am I afraid? There is no threat here, yet your body continues to respond as if danger is imminent. This is the experience of infrasound exposure without conscious awareness. The pathway that infrasound takes through your nervous system is fundamentally different from the pathway of conscious perception. This is why infrasound can be so powerfully influential. It bypasses your rational mind entirely. It speaks directly to the most ancient, most powerful parts of your brain. It activates systems that have been honed by millions of years of evolution to respond to actual threats. Your rational mind cannot argue with your amygdala. Your logical reasoning cannot override your survival instincts. This is the neurological basis for why infrasound can create such profound and seemingly inexplicable emotional and physical responses. Understanding this neural architecture is essential for understanding how infrasound works. It is not that your mind is weak or easily fooled. It is that infrasound operates through a neural pathway that predates consciousness itself. It speaks a language that your brain evolved long before your conscious mind developed. It activates systems that are designed to respond first and think later, because in the evolutionary environment, thinking later could mean death. Your nervous system has prioritized speed over accuracy, automatic response over conscious deliberation. This was brilliant for survival on the African savanna. It is less helpful when you are triggered by infrasound in a modern office building or home. The military whisper. Decades of infrasound research in defense. Throughout the 20th century and into the 21st, military organizations around the world have invested significant resources into understanding and harnessing infrasound as a tool of psychological influence. This is not conspiracy theory or speculation. It is documented history, revealed through declassified documents, academic research, and the accounts of researchers who participated in these programs. The military interest in infrasound stems from a simple recognition. If infrasound can trigger fear, anxiety, and disorientation in the human nervous system, then infrasound could be weaponized as a non-lethal tool of psychological warfare and crowd control. The research began in earnest during the Cold War era. Soviet researchers conducted extensive studies on the psychological effects of low-frequency sound and vibration. They published findings showing that exposure to infrasound could cause anxiety, a sense of presence, hallucinations, and a range of other psychological effects. These studies were conducted with scientific rigor and detailed methodology. They were not fringe research or pseudoscience. They were legitimate investigations into the mechanisms by which infrasound influences human perception and psychology. Western military organizations took notice. The United States, Canada, and European nations all initiated their own research programs to investigate the potential military applications of infrasound. Some of this research was conducted openly by universities and research institutions under military funding. Some of it was conducted in classified environments by military research divisions. The declassified portions of these programs reveal findings that are both scientifically sound and deeply concerning. One of the most significant early findings was that infrasound could be used to create a sense of presence. When exposed to certain infrasound frequencies, particularly around 19 Hz, people consistently reported feeling as if someone or something was present in the room with them, even when they were completely alone. This effect was so reliable that it became known as the haunt frequency. Researchers could expose subjects to this frequency in a controlled laboratory setting, and the subjects would report the sensation of a ghostly presence, a feeling of being watched, or an awareness of an unseen entity. When the frequency was turned off, the sensation immediately ceased. The effect was reproducible and measurable. Further research revealed that infrasound could trigger more intense psychological effects. Exposure to infrasound could cause anxiety that was severe enough to incapacitate a person. It could cause disorientation and a loss of spatial awareness. It could cause feelings of dread and impending doom. It could even trigger hallucinations, not just of presence, but of visual phenomena. People exposed to infrasound in controlled experiments reported seeing shadows in peripheral vision, sensing movement where none existed, and experiencing a profound sense of unreality. The mechanisms for these effects were investigated thoroughly. Researchers found that infrasound frequencies in the range of 5 to 20 Hz could cause the eyeball itself to vibrate. When the eyeball vibrates at certain frequencies, it can cause the image on the retina to shift slightly. This shifting image is interpreted by the brain as movement in the peripheral visual field. This is why people exposed to infrasound often report seeing shadows or movement in their peripheral vision. The brain is not hallucinating in the traditional sense. It is responding to actual physical stimulation of the eye caused by infrasound vibration. Military organizations recognize the potential applications of this research immediately. If infrasound could be generated in a controlled manner, it could be deployed in military operations to disorient enemy combatants, to create panic in civilian populations, or to influence the psychological state of individuals in a target area. Prototypes of infrasound-generating devices were developed and tested. Some of these devices were designed to be portable and could be deployed in the field. Others were larger installations designed for use in fixed locations. The technology was feasible, the effects were predictable, the military applications were obvious. The question became, could infrasound be used ethically and legally? This question led to a complex intersection of military strategy, international law, and ethical considerations. The development of psychological weapons is prohibited under the Biological Weapons Convention, an international treaty signed by most nations. However, the legal status of infrasound weapons was ambiguous. Infrasound does not cause physical injury. It does not poison or contaminate. It does not spread disease. Yet it can cause profound psychological effects. Did this fall under the prohibition against psychological weapons, or was it a distinct category? Different nations answered this question differently. Some military organizations continued their research into infrasound applications, developing the technology further and conducting more sophisticated studies. Other nations chose to limit or cease their research, determining that the ethical concerns outweighed the potential military applications. The declassified documents from various nations reveal a pattern of research that continued through the 1980s and 1990s, and in some cases, into the 2000s. One of the most interesting aspects of military infrasound research is that much of it was conducted with the aim of understanding how to protect personnel from infrasound exposure, rather than how to deploy it as a weapon. Military organizations recognize that infrasound could be a hazard in certain operational environments. Low-frequency vibrations from explosions, heavy machinery, and vehicle engines could expose soldiers to infrasound frequencies. Understanding the effects of this exposure and developing countermeasures became an important area of research. This protective research led to significant advances in understanding infrasound physiology. Researchers documented the specific frequencies that had the greatest effects on human psychology and physiology. They identified the intensity levels at which effects became noticeable and the duration of exposure required to produce measurable changes in psychological state. They investigated individual differences in susceptibility to infrasound. They explored the role of expectation and suggestion in modulating the effects of infrasound. All of this knowledge advanced the scientific understanding of infrasound and its effects on human beings. The legacy of military infrasound research is complex and multifaceted. On one hand, it has provided rigorous scientific knowledge about the mechanisms by which infrasound influences human perception and psychology. This knowledge has applications in understanding natural phenomena, in designing safer environments, and in protecting people from unintended infrasound exposure. On the other hand, the knowledge that infrasound can be deliberately deployed to cause psychological distress raises ethical concerns about potential misuse. The fact that infrasound technology exists and that the effects are well understood means that the possibility of intentional deployment remains, even if formal military programs have been curtailed or abandoned. Today, infrasound research continues in academic and scientific contexts. Universities around the world study the physiological and psychological effects of infrasound. Researchers investigate the role of infrasound in natural disasters and environmental phenomena. The knowledge accumulated through decades of military and civilian research has been integrated into the broader scientific understanding of human neurobiology and perception. What was once classified military research is now part of the public scientific record, available to anyone with the curiosity to seek it out. Resonance and the body. Which organs vibrate at which frequencies? Your body is not a solid, unchanging structure. It is a dynamic system composed of tissues, organs, and fluid compartments, each with its own physical properties and natural resonant frequencies. When external vibrations at certain frequencies pass through your environment, they can cause different parts of your body to resonate in synchrony with those frequencies. This resonance is not metaphorical. It is a literal physical phenomenon in which your organs and tissues vibrate in response to external oscillations. Understanding which parts of your body resonate at which frequencies is crucial to understanding how infrasound affects you. Different organs and tissue structures have different natural resonant frequencies determined by their size, shape, composition, and the elasticity of the materials that comprise them. When an external frequency matches or approaches the natural resonant frequency of an organ, that organ begins to vibrate with increased amplitude. This resonance can amplify the effects of the external vibration, making the organ vibrate more intensely than it would if it was simply being passively moved by the external frequency. Your lungs, for example, have a natural resonant frequency in the range of 3 to 7 Hz. When your lungs are exposed to infrasound frequencies in this range, they can resonate, causing the air within them to oscillate at that frequency. This resonance can affect your breathing patterns and can create physical sensations within your chest. Many people exposed to infrasound in this frequency range report feeling a pressure in their chest, a sensation of breathlessness, or an inexplicable tightness in their lungs. Some report that their breathing becomes irregular, or that they feel unable to take a full, satisfying breath. These are not imaginary sensations. They are the result of your lungs actually vibrating in response to external infrasound frequencies. Your heart has a natural resonant frequency around 10 Hz. When exposed to infrasound frequencies near this range, your heart can begin to vibrate in synchrony with the external frequency. This can affect your heart rate, your heart rhythm, and your cardiovascular function. People exposed to infrasound frequencies around this range sometimes report palpitations, arrhythmias, or a sensation of their heart racing or fluttering. In extreme cases, exposure to infrasound at frequencies very close to the heart's natural resonant frequency can actually induce arrhythmias or other cardiac disturbances. Your abdominal cavity and its contents resonate at frequencies in the range of 5 to 12 Hz. The large, fluid-filled organs in your abdomen, including your liver, stomach, and intestines, can all resonate at specific frequencies within this range. When exposed to infrasound at these frequencies, people often report sensations of nausea, abdominal discomfort, or a sensation of internal vibration. The vibration of these organs can actually affect your digestive function and can trigger nausea or gastrointestinal distress. Your eyes and the structures within them have resonant frequencies in the range of 15 to 20 Hz. When exposed to infrasound in this frequency range, your eyeballs can vibrate. This vibration causes the image that falls on your retina to shift slightly. Your brain interprets this shifting image as movement in your visual field, particularly in your peripheral vision. This is why people exposed to infrasound in this frequency range so commonly report seeing shadows or sensing movement in their peripheral vision. The effect is particularly pronounced around 19 Hz, which appears to be very close to the natural resonant frequency of the human eye. Your brain itself does not have a single resonant frequency. Rather, different structures within your brain operate at different frequencies. Your brain produces electrical oscillations in the range of 1 to 40 Hz, divided into several bands. Your delta waves operate at 1 to 4 Hz and are associated with deep sleep. Your theta waves operate at 4 to 8 Hz and are associated with relaxation and meditation. Your alpha waves operate at 8 to 12 Hz and are associated with calm wakefulness. Your beta waves operate at 12 to 30 Hz and are associated with active thinking and concentration. Your gamma waves operate above 30 Hz and are associated with high-level cognitive processing. When your brain is exposed to external frequencies that match these internal oscillation frequencies, a phenomenon called brainwave entrainment can occur. Your brain's electrical activity can actually synchronize with the external frequency. If you are exposed to an external frequency of 10 Hz, for example, your brain's alpha wave activity can increase and your alpha waves can synchronize with the external 10 Hz frequency. This entrainment can change your psychological state. Exposure to frequencies that induce alpha wave entrainment can promote relaxation and calm. Exposure to frequencies that induce theta wave entrainment can promote deep relaxation and meditative states. However, when infrasound frequencies are applied, the effects can be quite different. Because infrasound frequencies are below the normal range of human consciousness, they can affect brainwave activity in ways that bypass your conscious awareness. If you are exposed to infrasound at 5 Hz, for example, your brain may begin to produce more delta waves, the waves associated with deep sleep. This could happen without your conscious awareness, and you might find yourself becoming drowsy or falling asleep without understanding why. Alternatively, if you are exposed to infrasound at frequencies that trigger theta wave entrainment, you might experience a state of deep relaxation or even dissociation without realizing that an external frequency is inducing this state. The resonance of your body to external infrasound frequencies is not uniform across all individuals. Different people have slightly different organ sizes and compositions, which means that their natural resonant frequencies may vary somewhat. Additionally, your physical and emotional state can affect how readily your organs resonate with external frequencies. When you are already in a state of anxiety or heightened arousal, your organs may resonate more readily with infrasound frequencies. When you are in a state of calm relaxation, your organs may be less susceptible to resonance. Your breathing patterns also affect resonance. When you are breathing shallowly and rapidly, your lungs are less able to resonate with external frequencies. When you are breathing slowly and deeply, your lungs are more susceptible to resonance. This is why understanding the relationship between your body and infrasound frequencies is so important. Your body is not a passive receiver of external vibrations. It is an active, dynamic system that can resonate with, amplify, and respond to external frequencies. By understanding which frequencies affect which parts of your body, you can begin to develop strategies for protecting yourself from unwanted infrasound exposure and for utilizing beneficial frequencies to enhance your well-being. You can learn to recognize the physical sensations that indicate infrasound exposure. You can develop breathing and relaxation techniques that reduce your susceptibility to resonance. You can become conscious and intentional in your relationship with the invisible frequencies that surround you. The amygdala awakening. How infrasound hijacks your threat detection. Deep within your brain, nestled in the medial temporal lobe, lies a structure approximately the size of an almond. This is your amygdala, and it is arguably the most powerful influence on your emotional life, particularly your experience of fear and threat detection. The amygdala has often been called the brain's alarm system, but this description undersells its sophistication and power. Your amygdala is not simply an alarm. It is a threat assessment system that operates with extraordinary speed and sensitivity, processing information about your environment and making rapid decisions about whether you are in danger. The amygdala did not evolve to make you happy or to help you flourish. It evolved to keep you alive. In the ancestral environment, threats were often immediate and lethal. A predator could appear without warning. A rival tribe could attack. A natural disaster could strike. The amygdala's job was to detect these threats as quickly as possible and to mobilize your body's resources to respond to them. Speed was more important than accuracy. It was better to respond to a false alarm than to miss a genuine threat. This is why your amygdala is biased toward perceiving threat rather than safety. The amygdala receives sensory information from multiple sources. It receives processed sensory information from your sensory cortex, the conscious perception centers of your brain, but it also receives raw, unprocessed information directly from your thalamus, the relay station that receives incoming sensory information. This direct pathway from the thalamus to the amygdala is faster than the pathway to your conscious sensory cortex. It allows your amygdala to respond to potential threats before you even consciously perceive them. This is crucial to understanding how infrasound influences your amygdala. Because infrasound is detected by your body's pressure receptors and vestibular system, rather than by your ears, the information about infrasound travels directly to your brainstem and from there to your amygdala. This information arrives at your amygdala before your conscious mind has any awareness that anything unusual is occurring. Your amygdala receives a signal that says, "Low-frequency vibration detected." This could indicate danger. Your amygdala does not question this signal. It does not ask whether you are truly in danger. It simply responds. When your amygdala detects infrasound, it initiates what is known as the fear conditioning response. This response involves several interconnected neural systems. First, your amygdala sends signals to your hypothalamus, which controls hormone release. Your hypothalamus releases corticotropin-releasing hormone, which triggers your pituitary gland to release adrenocorticotropic hormone. This hormone reaches your adrenal glands, which release adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. These hormones prepare your body for action. Your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes rapid and shallow, your blood pressure rises, your digestion slows. Blood flow is diverted from your extremities to your large muscles and your brain. Your pupils dilate. Your hearing becomes more acute. All of these changes happen automatically, without your conscious direction. Simultaneously, your amygdala sends signals to your sympathetic nervous system, which activates your fight or flight response. Your muscles tense, your reflexes become faster, your pain threshold increases, your mental focus narrows, concentrating on the perceived threat. Your immune system is suppressed, as the energy that would normally go to immune function is diverted to the immediate threat response. Your rational mind, located in your prefrontal cortex, becomes partially offline. The amygdala's response takes priority. Your conscious reasoning is temporarily overridden by your survival instincts. The remarkable thing about this response is that it can be triggered by infrasound, without your conscious mind having any idea why you are responding this way. You are exposed to infrasound. Your amygdala detects it and interprets it as a potential threat. Your entire body mobilizes for action. You become anxious, alert, and afraid. Your conscious mind looks around for an explanation. What is the threat? Why am I afraid? You see nothing unusual. You see no predator, no attacker, no obvious danger. Yet your body continues to respond as if danger is imminent. This disconnect between your conscious perception and your body's response is deeply unsettling. What makes this even more complex is that the amygdala's response to infrasound can become conditioned. Once your amygdala has been triggered by infrasound in a particular location, it can become sensitized to that location. Subsequently, even the thought of that location, or a slight reminder of it, can trigger an amygdala response. If you experience infrasound exposure in your bedroom, your amygdala may become conditioned to respond to your bedroom with anxiety. From that point forward, simply being in your bedroom may trigger fear responses, even in the absence of any infrasound exposure. Your amygdala has learned that your bedroom is associated with threat, and it will respond accordingly. This is the mechanism behind many experiences of feeling unsafe in particular locations or environments. A person may develop an intense fear of a specific building, room, or outdoor location without being able to articulate why they are afraid. They may describe the location as feeling wrong, haunted, or dangerous, even though there is no obvious source of danger. In many cases, this fear originated from infrasound exposure in that location. The amygdala became conditioned to associate that location with threat. Now, whenever the person is in that location, their amygdala responds with anxiety and fear. Understanding the role of the amygdala in infrasound response is important because it reveals that your fear response is not a reflection of your courage or your rationality. You are not weak or foolish for being afraid when infrasound is present. You are responding to a neurological mechanism that evolved millions of years ago and that operates outside of your conscious control. Your amygdala is doing exactly what it was designed to do, detecting potential threats and mobilizing your body to respond to them. The fact that the threat is invisible and that your conscious mind cannot perceive it does not matter. Your amygdala perceives it, and that is sufficient to trigger a full fear response. The pathway to reducing amygdala response to infrasound involves several approaches. One is to consciously recognize when your amygdala has been triggered and to engage your prefrontal cortex, your rational mind, to evaluate whether there is actually a threat. This is not always easy because the amygdala's response happens so quickly that your conscious mind may not have time to catch up. However, with practice, you can develop the ability to notice your amygdala response and to consciously question it. Is there actually a threat here? What evidence do I have of danger? Often the rational answer is that there is no actual threat. This conscious reasoning can help to calm your amygdala response. Another approach is to work with your body directly. Slow, deep breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which counteracts the amygdala's fear response. Gentle movement and progressive muscle relaxation can help to discharge the tension that the amygdala has created. Meditation and mindfulness practices can help you to observe your amygdala's response without being overwhelmed by it. These practices do not stop the amygdala from responding to infrasound, but they can help you to manage the response more effectively and to recover more quickly once the infrasound stimulus has passed. Hallucinations without drugs. The science of perception distortion. One of the most unsettling aspects of infrasound exposure is that it can trigger genuine hallucinations. These are not hallucinations in the sense of losing touch with reality or experiencing psychosis. Rather, they are perceptual distortions in which your sensory systems and your brain create experiences that do not correspond to objective reality. You see something that is not there. You sense a presence that does not exist. You experience a shift in your perception of reality itself. These experiences are real in the sense that they are genuinely occurring within your nervous system, even though they do not correspond to external events. The mechanisms behind infrasound-induced hallucinations are partly understood through neuroscience research. The most common type of hallucination associated with infrasound exposure is the visual hallucination of shadows or movement in peripheral vision. As discussed earlier, this occurs because infrasound frequencies around 15 to 20 Hz can cause your eyeballs to vibrate. When your eyeballs vibrate at these frequencies, the image that falls on your retina shifts slightly. Your brain interprets this shifting image as movement in your visual field. Your conscious perception is that something is moving in your peripheral vision, even though nothing external is moving. This effect is particularly striking because it is so reliable and consistent. Researchers have conducted experiments in which subjects are exposed to infrasound at 19 Hz while sitting in a controlled laboratory environment. The subjects are told nothing about infrasound or its effects, yet many of them spontaneously report seeing shadows or sensing movement in their peripheral vision. When the infrasound is turned off, the sensation immediately ceases. This demonstrates that the hallucination is not a product of expectation or suggestion. It is a direct result of the physical vibration of the eye induced by the infrasound frequency. Beyond the visual hallucinations, infrasound can trigger other types of perceptual distortions. One of the most commonly reported is the sensation of a presence. People exposed to certain infrasound frequencies report feeling as if someone or something is present in the room with them, even though they are alone. They may feel as if they are being watched. They may sense a malevolent presence or feel threatened by something unseen. This sensation is so common and so reliable that researchers have termed it the haunt frequency. It occurs most consistently around 19 Hz, though it can occur at other frequencies as well. The mechanisms behind the sensation of presence are more complex than the mechanisms behind visual hallucinations. Several factors appear to be involved. The visual hallucinations of shadows and movement in peripheral vision certainly contribute. When you see shadows moving in your peripheral vision, your brain naturally interprets this as the presence of something. Additionally, the infrasound can affect your sense of spatial orientation through your vestibular system. Your vestibular system normally gives you a sense of where your body is in space and how it is oriented relative to the environment. When infrasound stimulates your vestibular system, it can create a sense of spatial distortion or disorientation. Your brain may interpret this distortion as the presence of something else in the space with you. There may also be a component of sensory gating dysfunction involved. Sensory gating is the process by which your brain filters out irrelevant sensory information so that you are not overwhelmed by the constant barrage of sensory input. When infrasound disrupts normal sensory gating, your brain may become hyper-alert to subtle sensory stimuli. You may notice things that you would normally filter out. You may become aware of your own body's subtle movements and vibrations. You may become acutely aware of sounds at the edge of your hearing range. All of this heightened sensory awareness can contribute to the sensation of presence. Beyond visual and spatial hallucinations, infrasound can trigger auditory hallucinations. Some people exposed to infrasound report hearing voices, whispers, or other sounds that are not actually present. These auditory hallucinations may be related to the activation of your auditory cortex by infrasound-induced changes in your brain's electrical activity. Your auditory cortex may become spontaneously active, creating the perception of sound, even though no actual sound is present. The hallucinations induced by infrasound can be disturbing and unsettling. They challenge your confidence in your own perception. If you see something that is not there, or sense a presence that does not exist, you may begin to question your sanity. You may wonder if you are experiencing a mental health crisis or a neurological disorder. This is one of the reasons why understanding infrasound is so important. When you understand that infrasound can trigger hallucinations, you can recognize these experiences for what they are: sensory distortions caused by an external physical stimulus, not signs of mental illness or loss of touch with reality. The hallucinations induced by infrasound are also interesting from a neuroscientific perspective because they demonstrate the degree to which perception is constructed by your brain rather than being a direct reflection of external reality. Your brain does not simply receive sensory information and report it faithfully. Instead, your brain actively constructs your perception of reality based on sensory input, past experience, expectations, and the current state of your nervous system. When infrasound alters the sensory input or the state of your nervous system, it alters the reality that your brain constructs. This has profound implications for understanding the nature of perception itself. We tend to believe that we perceive reality objectively, that what we see and sense is an accurate representation of the world around us. Yet infrasound demonstrates that this is not the case. Our perception is highly dependent on the state of our nervous system and on the sensory information available to us. Change the sensory information and you change the perception. Alter the nervous system and you alter the perception. In a very real sense, the reality that you perceive is not the objective reality of the external world, but rather a construction of your brain based on its interpretation of available information. This understanding can be both unsettling and liberating. It is unsettling because it challenges our confidence in our perception and our sense of reality. Yet it is liberating because it reveals that we have more control over our perception than we might have believed. If perception is a construction of our nervous system, then by changing our nervous system's state, we can change our perception. By understanding how infrasound affects our perception, we can develop strategies to manage those effects and to maintain a stable and accurate perception of reality, even in the presence of infrasound exposure. Architecture of unease. Why certain spaces feel haunted. Throughout human history and across virtually every culture, certain buildings and locations have acquired reputations as haunted or cursed. These are places where people consistently report feeling uneasy, anxious, or afraid, even in the absence of any obvious danger. Psychologists and paranormal researchers have long debated the reasons for these experiences. Some attribute them to genuine supernatural phenomena. Others dismiss them as products of overactive imagination or suggestion. Yet there is a third explanation that is grounded in physics and neuroscience. Many of these locations may have architectural or environmental features that generate infrasound. Buildings have physical properties that determine how they respond to vibrations and frequencies. The size, shape, and materials of a building all affect the frequencies at which the building resonates. When external vibrations at these resonant frequencies pass through the environment, the building can amplify them, creating intensified infrasound within the building's interior. Additionally, certain architectural features can generate infrasound directly. Doors, windows, ventilation systems, and other openings in a building can vibrate at infrasound frequencies when exposed to wind, traffic vibrations, or other sources of mechanical disturbance. One of the most famous examples of this phenomenon is the case of a laboratory in Canada, where researchers were investigating infrasound. The laboratory was located in a building with a large fan used for ventilation. The fan operated at a frequency that generated infrasound at approximately 18 Hz. Several researchers working in the laboratory began reporting experiences that they attributed to a ghostly presence. They felt uneasy. They sensed that something was present in the laboratory with them. Some reported seeing shadows. Others reported feeling watched. The experiences were disturbing enough that the researchers began to suspect that the laboratory might be haunted. The mystery was eventually solved when someone realized that the ventilation fan was generating infrasound. The fan was modified, and the infrasound frequency was eliminated. The experiences of unease and presence immediately ceased. The laboratory was not haunted. It was simply generating infrasound at frequencies that triggered the experiences that the researchers had interpreted as paranormal. This case is not unique. Researchers have identified numerous buildings that generate infrasound and in which people consistently report experiences of feeling haunted. In many cases, these buildings have architectural features that resonate at infrasound frequencies. Old buildings, in particular, are prone to generating infrasound. The large open spaces in older buildings, combined with aging materials that may vibrate more readily, create conditions favorable to infrasound generation. Additionally, older buildings often have mechanical systems, such as heating and cooling systems, that can vibrate at infrasound frequencies. The relationship between architecture and infrasound has significant implications for understanding experiences of feeling unsafe or haunted in certain buildings. If a building is generating infrasound, people in that building will be exposed to frequencies that trigger their amygdala, that cause their organs to resonate, and that create perceptual distortions. They will feel afraid, anxious, and uneasy. They may sense a presence. They may see shadows. They may experience a profound sense of wrongness about the space. All of these experiences are real and are caused by the physical properties of the building, not by supernatural forces or by defects in the person's perception or mental health. Understanding this relationship also has practical implications. If a building is generating infrasound that is causing distress to its occupants, the infrasound can potentially be eliminated or reduced through modifications to the building's structure or mechanical systems. Ventilation systems can be modified to operate at different frequencies. Structural features can be damped to reduce their tendency to vibrate at infrasound frequencies. In some cases, simply improving insulation or sealing gaps in the building's envelope can reduce infrasound transmission from external sources. The experience of feeling haunted in a particular location often has a temporal component. People may report that the feeling is worse at certain times of day or in certain seasons. This variation can often be explained by changes in the environmental sources of infrasound. Wind patterns change throughout the day and throughout the year. Traffic patterns vary by time of day. Weather conditions affect how readily sound and vibrations are transmitted through the environment. All of these factors can affect the level of infrasound exposure in a particular location at different times. Additionally, the experience of feeling haunted in a location can be influenced by the expectation or knowledge that a location is haunted. If you have heard that a building is haunted, or if you believe that a location is dangerous, you will be more alert to potential threats. Your amygdala will be in a heightened state of readiness. When you then experience infrasound-induced sensations of presence or visual hallucinations, you will interpret these experiences through the lens of your expectation. You will believe that you are experiencing a genuine haunting. This is not to say that your experience is not real. Your experience is real, but your interpretation of the experience is shaped by your expectations and beliefs. This interaction between physical reality and psychological expectation is one of the most fascinating aspects of human perception. Your brain does not simply receive sensory information passively. It actively interprets that information based on your expectations, your beliefs, and your past experiences. When infrasound is present, it provides genuine sensory stimulation that triggers your amygdala and creates perceptual distortions. But the way you interpret and respond to these experiences is shaped by your psychological state. If you expect to feel haunted, you are more likely to interpret infrasound-induced sensations as evidence of a haunting. If you understand that the sensations are caused by infrasound, you are more likely to interpret them as a physical phenomenon and to remain calm. This understanding offers a path toward transforming the experience of feeling haunted or unsafe in a particular location. Rather than fleeing the location or living in fear, you can investigate the potential sources of infrasound. You can look for architectural features or mechanical systems that might be generating infrasound. You can have the space evaluated by someone with knowledge of acoustics and vibration. You can explore modifications to the space that might reduce infrasound generation. In many cases, simple interventions can eliminate the experiences that made the space feel haunted. Natural infrasound: storms, earthquakes, and the Earth's own frequencies. While much of the discussion surrounding infrasound has focused on human-generated sources, it is important to recognize that infrasound is a natural phenomenon that has been present throughout Earth's history. Natural sources of infrasound include severe weather events, geological phenomena, and even the movement of animals. Understanding natural infrasound provides crucial context for understanding how human beings have evolved to be sensitive to these frequencies and why infrasound affects us so profoundly. Thunderstorms are one of the most powerful natural sources of infrasound. When lightning strikes, it creates an enormous explosion of heated air. This explosion generates pressure waves that propagate outward from the lightning strike. Many of these pressure waves fall into the infrasound range. Additionally, the updrafts and downdrafts within thunderstorms, as well as the movement of large masses of air, generate infrasound. A person in the vicinity of a thunderstorm is exposed to significant levels of infrasound, often well before the storm itself arrives. The rumble of thunder that you feel in your chest is partially infrasound. The pressure in the air before a storm, which many people can sense, and which often makes them anxious or uneasy, is partly a result of infrasound. Earthquakes are another major natural source of infrasound. When tectonic plates shift and release enormous amounts of energy, they generate vibrations that travel through the earth and through the air. The infrasound generated by earthquakes can travel thousands of kilometers. People far from the epicenter of an earthquake can experience infrasound from the earthquake, even if they do not feel the ground shaking. This infrasound can trigger anxiety and fear responses in people who are not consciously aware that an earthquake has occurred. The sensation of dread or impending doom that some people experience minutes or hours before an earthquake may be partly a result of their nervous system detecting infrasound from the earthquake's early tremors. Volcanoes generate infrasound through several mechanisms. The explosion of gases and molten material from a volcanic eruption creates infrasound. The movement of lava and the collapse of volcanic structures generate infrasound. The infrasound from major volcanic eruptions can travel around the entire planet. Historical records contain accounts of people experiencing strange sensations, anxiety, and fear even though they were thousands of kilometers away from a volcanic eruption. In many cases, these experiences were likely caused by infrasound from the eruption. Hurricanes and other severe weather systems generate infrasound through the rapid movement of large air masses, the rotation of the storm system, and the intense pressure gradients within the storm. People in the path of a hurricane are exposed to significant infrasound from the storm. This infrasound contributes to the sense of dread and danger that people experience when a hurricane approaches. Ocean waves, particularly large waves generated by storms or tsunamis, generate infrasound. The impact of large waves against cliffs or the movement of water in deep ocean basins creates infrasound that propagates through both water and air. Whales and other marine animals are highly sensitive to this infrasound and use it for navigation and communication. Waterfalls and moving water in general can generate infrasound. The turbulence created by water flowing over rocks and obstacles generates vibrations at multiple frequencies, including infrasound. People living near waterfalls or in areas with significant flowing water are constantly exposed to infrasound from the water. This may explain some of the psychological effects that people report from living near water features. Some people find the sound of water deeply calming and peaceful. Others find it anxiety-inducing. These different responses may be partly related to differences in how people's nervous systems respond to the infrasound generated by the water. Wind is another significant natural source of infrasound. When wind moves through forests, across open plains, or around buildings and natural features, it can generate infrasound. Wind tunneling through a canyon creates infrasound. Wind passing over mountains and hills creates infrasound. In fact, wind is probably the most constant and ubiquitous natural source of infrasound in most environments. People living in windy locations are constantly exposed to wind-generated infrasound. From an evolutionary perspective, this constant exposure to natural infrasound has shaped human neurobiology. Our ancestors evolved in environments saturated with infrasound from storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, flowing water, and wind. Our nervous system became exquisitely sensitive to these natural infrasound frequencies as a survival mechanism. When infrasound indicated an approaching storm, our ancestors could seek shelter. When infrasound indicated an earthquake, our ancestors could respond appropriately. When infrasound indicated other environmental hazards, our ancestors could take protective action. This evolutionary adaptation explains why infrasound has such a powerful effect on human psychology and physiology. Our nervous system is fundamentally attuned to these frequencies because they have been significant throughout our evolutionary history. We are not simply responding to infrasound as an arbitrary stimulus. We are responding to frequencies that have been associated with genuine danger throughout human evolution. Additionally, the fact that natural infrasound is ubiquitous in the environment has implications for understanding modern human experiences. In the ancestral environment, infrasound exposure was episodic. A storm would pass. An earthquake would occur and then cease. Wind would blow and then subside. Yet in the modern environment, many people are exposed to chronic infrasound from mechanical systems, traffic, and buildings that resonate at infrasound frequencies. This chronic exposure is something that human neurobiology did not evolve to manage. Our nervous system is adapted to respond to episodic infrasound as an indicator of acute danger. When exposed to chronic infrasound, our nervous system may remain in a state of heightened alert, unable to return to a state of safety and calm. Understanding natural infrasound also provides a foundation for understanding why certain natural environments feel peaceful and calming while others feel disturbing. Environments with minimal infrasound generation or with infrasound frequencies that do not trigger fear responses tend to feel peaceful. Quiet forests or mountains may generate some infrasound from wind, but the frequencies and intensities may be within ranges that do not trigger anxiety. Coastal areas with gentle waves may generate infrasound that people find calming and peaceful. In contrast, environments near cliffs with crashing waves or near areas with frequent wind tunneling effects may generate infrasound that triggers anxiety and unease. The phantom presence. Why you feel watched in silent places. One of the most mysterious and unsettling experiences that people report is the sensation of being watched or of a presence being nearby, particularly in silent or isolated places. This experience is so common and so consistent across cultures that it has become a staple of folklore, mythology, and literature. People describe the sensation as an awareness of something nearby, even though they cannot see or hear anything. They feel watched, they sense a presence, They experience a profound sense of being observed by something unseen. For centuries, this experience was attributed to supernatural entities or to psychological disorders. Yet neuroscience research has revealed that this experience can be reliably induced by exposure to infrasound at certain frequencies, particularly around 19 Hz. This does not mean that all experiences of feeling watched are caused by infrasound, but it does mean that a significant proportion of these experiences can be explained through the mechanisms of infrasound-induced perception. The sensation of being watched or of a presence being nearby appears to result from a combination of several factors working together. The first is the visual hallucination of shadows or movement in peripheral vision, which results from infrasound-induced vibration of the eyeballs. When you see shadows moving in your peripheral vision, your brain naturally interprets this as the presence of something in the space with you. Your brain does not conclude that your eyes are vibrating. Instead, it concludes that something is moving near you. This interpretation is reasonable, given the sensory information available to your conscious mind. The second factor is the disruption of spatial awareness caused by infrasound stimulation of your vestibular system. Your vestibular system normally gives you a precise sense of where your body is in space and how it is oriented relative to the environment. When infrasound stimulates your vestibular system, it can create a sense of spatial distortion. You may feel as if the space around you is larger or smaller than it actually is. You may feel disoriented. This spatial distortion can contribute to the sensation of presence. Your brain interprets the distortion as the presence of something else in the space. The third factor is the heightened state of alertness and threat detection that infrasound triggers through your amygdala. When your amygdala has been activated by infrasound, your entire nervous system is in a state of heightened vigilance. Your attention is narrowly focused on detecting threat. Your sensory systems are hyper-alert. In this state of heightened alert, your brain is primed to interpret ambiguous sensory information as evidence of threat. A subtle sound becomes the breathing of an unseen presence. A slight movement in your peripheral vision becomes evidence of something nearby. The ordinary creaks and sounds of a building become the movements of an entity. The fourth factor is the activation of a brain region called the temporoparietal junction, or TPJ. This region of your brain is responsible for creating your sense of self and for distinguishing between yourself and others. When the TPJ is disrupted by infrasound or other stimuli, people can experience a sensation of another presence in the space with them. They may feel as if there is a duplicate of themselves present, or as if there is another entity present. This is sometimes called the doppelganger effect. The disruption of the TPJ can create a literal sense of another presence. The combination of these factors can create an overwhelming sensation of presence that feels absolutely real to the person experiencing it. The experience is not a hallucination in the sense of losing touch with reality. The person knows that they are in a real place. They know that they are awake and conscious. Yet they have a profound sense that something is present with them. The sensory and neurological mechanisms underlying this experience are genuine. The person is not imagining it or making it up. The brain is genuinely constructing a perception of presence based on the sensory input and neurological state created by infrasound. This understanding has significant implications for people who experience the sensation of feeling watched or of a presence being nearby. First, it validates their experience. They are not crazy. They are not losing their mind. They are experiencing a real neurological phenomenon that is caused by an external physical stimulus. Second, it provides an explanation for the experience that does not require belief in supernatural entities. Third, it offers potential pathways for managing the experience. If you experience the sensation of being watched or of a presence being nearby, you can investigate whether infrasound might be the cause. Do you feel this sensation in particular locations or at particular times? Does the sensation occur in buildings with mechanical systems that might be generating infrasound? Does the sensation occur during or after storms or other weather events that generate infrasound? Does the sensation correlate with wind patterns or other environmental factors that might generate infrasound? If you can identify a correlation between your experience and potential infrasound sources, you have found a likely explanation for the sensation. Once you have identified a potential infrasound source, you can take steps to reduce or eliminate the infrasound exposure. You can modify mechanical systems, you can improve the building's insulation, you can change your location to avoid the infrasound source. You can develop techniques for managing your nervous system's response to infrasound, such as breathing exercises, grounding techniques, or meditation practices. All of these approaches can help to reduce or eliminate the sensation of feeling watched or of a presence being nearby. Additionally, understanding the mechanisms underlying the sensation of presence can help you to respond to the experience with less fear and anxiety. When you feel a presence, you can remind yourself that the sensation is likely caused by infrasound, not by an actual entity. You can engage your rational mind to evaluate whether there is actually any threat. You can practice grounding techniques to bring yourself back into your body and into the present moment. You can breathe slowly and deeply to activate your parasympathetic nervous system and to calm your amygdala response. These practices do not prevent infrasound from triggering the sensation of presence, but they can help you to manage the experience more effectively and to recover from it more quickly. Frequency and emotion. Mapping the landscape between sound and feeling. The relationship between frequency and emotion is one of the most profound and mysterious aspects of human neurobiology. We intuitively understand that different frequencies create different emotional states. Low, deep frequencies often feel calming, grounding, and stable. High frequencies often feel bright, energetic, and sometimes agitating or anxious. Yet the mechanisms underlying these associations between frequency and emotion are complex and are still not completely understood. What we do understand is that frequencies affect your nervous system at multiple levels. At the most basic level, different frequencies can cause different parts of your body to resonate. As discussed earlier, your lungs resonate at 3 to 7 Hz, your heart at around 10 Hz, your abdominal organs at 5 to 12 Hz, and your eyes at 15 to 20 Hz. When your body is exposed to frequencies that match the resonant frequencies of your organs, those organs vibrate. This physical vibration is detected by your nervous system and can trigger emotional responses. Beyond the direct physical resonance of your organs, frequencies can affect your brain's electrical activity. Your brain produces electrical oscillations at different frequencies, and these oscillations are associated with different states of consciousness and different emotional states. Your delta waves, at 1 to 4 Hz, are associated with deep sleep and unconsciousness. Your theta waves at 4 to 8 Hz are associated with relaxation, meditation, and the state you enter just before falling asleep. Your alpha waves at 8 to 12 Hz are associated with calm wakefulness and relaxation. Your beta waves at 12 to 30 Hz are associated with active thinking and normal wakefulness. Your gamma waves above 30 Hz are associated with high-level cognitive processing and heightened awareness. When you are exposed to external frequencies that match these brainwave frequencies, your brain's electrical activity can entrain to those external frequencies. If you are exposed to an external frequency of 10 Hz, your brain may begin to produce more alpha waves, and your alpha waves may synchronize with the external frequency. This entrainment can change your psychological state. Exposure to frequencies that induce alpha wave entrainment can promote relaxation and calm. Exposure to frequencies that induce theta wave entrainment can promote deep relaxation and meditative states. However, the emotional response to different frequencies is not solely determined by brainwave entrainment or by organ resonance. There is also a strong component of learned association and cultural conditioning. In Western music, for example, certain frequencies and frequency combinations have become associated with particular emotions through centuries of musical tradition. Major chords tend to feel happy or bright. Minor chords tend to feel sad or somber. Low frequencies in music tend to feel powerful or ominous. High frequencies tend to feel light or ethereal. These associations are not universal or innate. They are learned through exposure to music and through cultural conditioning. Additionally, your emotional response to frequencies can be influenced by your personal history and experiences. If you have had a frightening experience while exposed to a particular frequency, that frequency may trigger anxiety or fear in you, even though it does not trigger the same response in other people. If you have had a relaxing or pleasant experience while exposed to a particular frequency, that frequency may trigger relaxation or pleasure in you. Your personal associations with frequencies can override universal or cultural associations. The relationship between infrasound frequencies and emotion is particularly interesting because infrasound operates outside the range of conscious hearing. You do not consciously hear infrasound, so you cannot form conscious musical or linguistic associations with infrasound frequencies. Yet infrasound still triggers powerful emotional responses. This suggests that the emotional responses to infrasound are rooted in more ancient, more primitive neural mechanisms than the conscious associations we form with audible frequencies. The frequencies that trigger the strongest fear or anxiety responses appear to be those that have been most significant throughout human evolution. Frequencies around 7 Hz trigger unease and dread in many people. This frequency is in the range of the electrical oscillations in your brain that occur during states of anxiety and hypervigilance. Frequencies around 19 Hz trigger the sensation of presence and visual hallucinations. This frequency is close to the resonant frequency of the human eye. Frequencies around 10 Hz, the resonant frequency of the human heart, can trigger feelings of cardiac distress or arrhythmia. In contrast, some infrasound frequencies appear to be associated with positive emotional states. Frequencies around 4 to 8 Hz, the range of theta waves, can promote relaxation and meditative states. Some research has suggested that exposure to these frequencies can enhance creativity, improve sleep quality, and promote a sense of well-being. This suggests that not all infrasound is associated with fear or anxiety. The emotional response to infrasound depends on the specific frequency, the intensity of exposure, the duration of exposure, and the individual's susceptibility to the effects of that frequency. Understanding the relationship between frequency and emotion has practical applications. If you are trying to create an environment that promotes relaxation and well-being, you can consider the frequencies present in that environment. You can identify and eliminate sources of infrasound that trigger anxiety or fear. You can potentially introduce frequencies that promote relaxation and calm. This might involve sound baths, vibrational therapy, or other modalities that use specific frequencies to influence emotional state. Additionally, understanding frequency and emotion can help you to make sense of your emotional responses to different environments. If you feel anxious in a particular location, the anxiety may be partly caused by infrasound frequencies present in that location. If you feel calm and peaceful in another location, the calm may be partly caused by the absence of anxiety-triggering frequencies and the potential presence of relaxation-promoting frequencies. By becoming aware of the frequencies in your environment, you can begin to understand how those frequencies are influencing your emotional state. Protection and awareness, building resilience against invisible influence. Now that you understand how infrasound affects your nervous system, your perception and your emotional state, the question becomes, how can you protect yourself from unwanted infrasound exposure and build resilience against its effects? The answer involves a multifaceted approach that combines environmental modifications, nervous system regulation, and conscious awareness. The first step is to become aware of the potential sources of infrasound in your environment. In your home, mechanical systems such as heating and cooling systems, ventilation fans, and refrigerators can generate infrasound. Older appliances are more likely to generate infrasound than newer models. If you have a furnace or air conditioning system that is making unusual noises or vibrations, it may be generating infrasound. Additionally, external sources such as traffic, wind, and nearby machinery can generate infrasound that enters your home. You can assess your home for potential infrasound sources by listening carefully for low-frequency rumbles or vibrations. You can feel for vibrations by placing your hand on surfaces in your home. You can observe whether you feel more anxious or uneasy in certain rooms or at certain times of day, which might indicate infrasound exposure. If you identify a potential infrasound source, you can take steps to address it. You can have mechanical systems serviced or upgraded. You can add insulation to reduce the transmission of external infrasound into your home. You can seal gaps and cracks that allow sound and vibration to enter. In your workplace, similar sources of infrasound may be present. Office buildings often have mechanical systems that operate at infrasound frequencies. Large open spaces can amplify infrasound. If you feel anxious or uneasy at work, the environment may be contributing to this feeling. You can speak with your employer or building management about addressing potential infrasound sources. You can also take personal steps, such as moving to a different location within the building if possible, or creating a personal workspace with improved acoustic properties. Beyond environmental modifications, you can develop practices and techniques that build resilience in your nervous system and reduce your susceptibility to infrasound effects. One of the most effective of these is slow, deep breathing. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and recovery. This activation counteracts the sympathetic nervous system's fight or flight response that infrasound can trigger. By practicing slow, deep breathing regularly, you train your nervous system to return to a state of calm more readily. A simple breathing practice that you can use is the 4-4-4 technique. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath for a count of 4. Exhale through your mouth for a count of 4. Repeat this cycle for several minutes. This practice slows your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure, and activates your parasympathetic nervous system. If you practice this regularly, your nervous system becomes more resilient and more able to recover from stress and threat responses. Another powerful practice is progressive muscle relaxation. This involves systematically tensing and relaxing different muscle groups throughout your body. Start with your toes. Tense the muscles in your toes for a few seconds, then relax them. Notice the sensation of relaxation. Move up through your feet, calves, thighs, buttocks, abdomen, chest, back, shoulders, arms, hands, neck, and face, tensing and relaxing each group of muscles. This practice helps you to release tension that may have been triggered by infrasound exposure. It also helps you to develop awareness of where you hold tension in your body. Meditation and mindfulness practices are also valuable for building resilience against infrasound effects. When you meditate, you train your mind to observe your thoughts and sensations without being overwhelmed by them. If you experience anxiety or fear triggered by infrasound, meditation practice can help you to observe these experiences without being consumed by them. You can watch the anxiety arise, notice it, and allow it to pass without fighting it or being swept away by it. This does not prevent infrasound from triggering anxiety, but it helps you to manage the anxiety more effectively. A simple meditation practice that you can use is body scan meditation. Lie down or sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Bring your attention to the top of your head. Notice any sensations present in that area. Gradually move your attention down through your body, noticing sensations in each area. When your mind wanders, gently bring it back to the body scan. This practice develops awareness of your body and helps you to recognize the physical sensations associated with anxiety or fear triggered by infrasound. Additionally, you can develop conscious awareness of your emotional and physical responses. When you feel anxious or afraid, pause and ask yourself, is there an actual threat? What evidence do I have of danger? Often the answer will be that there is no actual threat. Your amygdala has been triggered, but there is no real danger. This conscious questioning can help to calm your amygdala response. You are engaging your prefrontal cortex, your rational mind, to evaluate the situation. This helps to restore balance between your emotional brain and your rational mind. You can also develop grounding techniques that help you to return to a state of calm and presence when you feel anxious or afraid. One simple grounding technique is the 5 senses exercise. Notice 5 things you can see. Notice 4 things you can touch or feel. Notice 3 things you can hear. Notice 2 things you can smell. Notice 1 thing you can taste. This exercise brings your attention into the present moment and into your sensory experience, which can help to interrupt an anxiety response. Finally, you can develop lifestyle practices that support nervous system health and resilience. Regular exercise helps to regulate your nervous system and to reduce baseline anxiety levels. Adequate sleep is essential for nervous system recovery and regulation. A healthy diet supports brain and nervous system function. Social connection and supportive relationships help to buffer against stress. All of these lifestyle factors contribute to building a nervous system that is more resilient and less susceptible to being overwhelmed by infrasound exposure. The contemplative perspective, finding peace within vibration. As you have journeyed through the understanding of infrasound and its effects on your nervous system, perception, and emotional state, it is natural to ask a deeper question. What is the contemplative or spiritual significance of this invisible vibration that surrounds us? How can we find peace and meaning in a world saturated with frequencies that we cannot consciously perceive? The contemplative perspective begins with a recognition that the visible world is only a small fraction of the totality of existence. The electromagnetic spectrum extends far beyond the range of visible light. The spectrum of sound extends far beyond the range of human hearing. The spectrum of vibration extends throughout the entire universe. We move through this vast landscape of invisible frequencies, responding to them, even though we are not consciously aware of most of them. This is a humbling realization. It reveals the limits of our perception and our understanding. Yet this realization also opens a doorway to a deeper appreciation of existence. If our perception is so limited, if we are responding to forces that we cannot see or hear, then the universe is vastly more complex and mysterious than our conscious mind can comprehend. This mystery is not something to fear. It is something to approach with curiosity, wonder, and openness. In many spiritual and contemplative traditions, there is a recognition that reality extends beyond the range of ordinary perception. In Hinduism and Buddhism, there are descriptions of subtle bodies and subtle energies that permeate physical matter but are not visible to ordinary sight. In many indigenous traditions, there is a recognition of spirit forces and energies that exist alongside the material world. In modern physics, there is a recognition of dark matter and dark energy that comprise the vast majority of the universe, but are invisible to our eyes. All of these perspectives point to a reality that is far more vast and mysterious than what we can perceive with our ordinary senses. The study of infrasound and its effects on human consciousness can be understood as a modern scientific exploration of these invisible realms. We are discovering that our nervous system is sensitive to frequencies that our conscious mind cannot perceive. We are discovering that these invisible frequencies profoundly influence our emotional state, our perception, and our sense of safety and meaning. We are discovering that the boundary between the visible and invisible worlds is permeable, and that we are constantly being influenced by forces that we cannot directly sense. A contemplative approach to this realization involves cultivating a sense of openness and receptivity to the mystery of existence. Rather than being frightened by the existence of invisible frequencies that affect us, we can approach them with curiosity and wonder. We can ask, what is the purpose of my sensitivity to these frequencies? What can this sensitivity teach me about the nature of existence? How can I develop a deeper relationship with the invisible dimensions of reality? One aspect of this contemplative perspective is the recognition that the universe is fundamentally vibrational. At the quantum level, all matter consists of vibrating fields. All energy manifests as oscillations at different frequencies. Your body is not a solid, static structure. It is a dynamic system of vibrating particles and fields. Your consciousness is not a fixed entity. It is a flowing process of neural activity at multiple frequencies. The entire universe is a symphony of vibrations, frequencies, and oscillations at every scale, from the subatomic to the cosmic. Your sensitivity to infrasound can be understood as a direct perception of this fundamental vibrational nature of reality. When you feel infrasound, you are directly experiencing the vibrational substrate of existence. You are resonating with frequencies that permeate the universe. In a very real sense, the boundaries between yourself and the universe dissolve. You are not a separate entity being affected by external vibrations. You are a vibrational system resonating with the vibrational field that comprises reality itself. This understanding can transform your relationship with infrasound and with the invisible forces that affect you. Rather than seeing infrasound as a threat or as something to be feared, you can see it as a doorway to a deeper understanding of existence. Rather than trying to eliminate all infrasound exposure, you can learn to work with the frequencies that surround you. You can use them as teachers, as guides to a deeper understanding of the nature of consciousness and reality. In contemplative practice, there is often a use of sound and vibration as a tool for deepening awareness and accessing altered states of consciousness. Mantra meditation uses the vibration of sound and language to alter consciousness. Sound baths use the vibrations of singing bowls and gongs to induce deep relaxation and altered states. Drumming circles use the vibration and rhythm of drums to induce trance states and altered consciousness. All of these practices recognize that vibration can be a pathway to deeper states of awareness and to transcendent experiences. The vibrations of infrasound, though usually experienced as disturbing or anxiety-producing, can potentially be worked with in a similar way. Rather than being overwhelmed by the anxiety that infrasound can trigger, you can use that anxiety as a signal that your nervous system is being activated. You can use meditation and contemplative practices to observe the activation without being consumed by it. You can use the activation as an opportunity to deepen your awareness and to access states of consciousness that might not be accessible in ordinary circumstances. This is not to say that all infrasound exposure is beneficial, or that you should deliberately expose yourself to anxiety-triggering infrasound. Rather, it is to suggest that when you do experience infrasound exposure, you can use it as an opportunity for deeper understanding and awareness. You can transform what might otherwise be a disturbing experience into a contemplative practice. Additionally, the recognition that invisible frequencies profoundly influence your experience can deepen your appreciation for the gift of consciousness. The fact that you are aware, that you have the capacity to perceive and to understand, is remarkable. The fact that you can become aware of influences that usually operate outside of consciousness is even more remarkable. This capacity for awareness is a precious gift. By cultivating awareness of the invisible frequencies that surround you, you are exercising and developing this gift. Integration, living consciously with frequencies. You cannot hear as you move forward from this exploration of infrasound and its effects on human consciousness and perception. The challenge becomes one of integration. How do you incorporate this knowledge into your daily life? How do you live consciously with frequencies that you cannot hear? How do you maintain peace and well-being in a world saturated with invisible vibrations? Integration begins with acceptance. You live in a world filled with frequencies at all levels, from the visible light that allows you to see, to the audible sounds that you hear, to the infrasound frequencies that you cannot consciously hear. These frequencies are not going away. You cannot escape them. Attempting to eliminate all infrasound exposure or all invisible frequencies from your life would be both impossible and undesirable. Instead, the goal is to develop a conscious, balanced relationship with these frequencies. This relationship begins with awareness. You have learned about the sources of infrasound in your environment. You have learned about how infrasound affects your nervous system. You have learned about the physical and psychological responses that infrasound can trigger. By maintaining this awareness, you can begin to notice when infrasound might be affecting you. You can recognize the signs of infrasound exposure in your body and your emotional state. This awareness itself is protective. When you understand what is happening, you are less likely to be overwhelmed by it. From awareness flows the capacity for choice. Rather than being passively affected by infrasound, you can make conscious choices about how to respond to it. If you identify a source of infrasound in your environment, you can choose to address it or to accept it. If you feel the effects of infrasound in your body, you can choose to practice breathing exercises or grounding techniques. If you find yourself becoming anxious or afraid, you can choose to engage your rational mind and to evaluate whether there is actual danger. By making conscious choices, you reclaim agency over your own nervous system and your own experience. Living consciously with invisible frequencies also involves cultivating a sense of curiosity and wonder about the world around you. Rather than seeing the invisible frequencies that affect you as something foreign or threatening, you can see them as an expression of the deep complexity and mystery of existence. You can ask yourself, what is generating this infrasound? What is it telling me about the environment? What can I learn from this experience? By approaching the invisible world with curiosity, rather than fear, you transform your relationship with it. Additionally, integration involves developing a daily practice that supports your nervous system, health, and resilience. This might involve a morning meditation practice to set your intention for the day. It might involve regular exercise to regulate your nervous system. It might involve evening relaxation practices to prepare your body for sleep. It might involve moments throughout the day when you pause to check in with your body and your emotional state. These practices do not eliminate the effects of infrasound, but they support your overall nervous system health and make you more resilient in the face of stresses and challenges. Integration also involves recognizing that your sensitivity to infrasound, while sometimes uncomfortable, is a gift. Your nervous system's sensitivity to invisible frequencies reflects millions of years of evolution that has finely tuned your ability to detect and respond to environmental signals. This sensitivity has kept your species alive. It allows you to respond to storms, earthquakes, and other natural phenomena. It allows you to sense danger, even when it is not obvious. Rather than seeing this sensitivity as a weakness or a flaw, you can see it as a strength and a gift. As you integrate this knowledge into your life, you may find that your relationship with fear and anxiety begins to shift. Rather than being frightened by anxiety that you cannot explain, you now have a framework for understanding it. Rather than seeing your nervous system as malfunctioning, you see it as responding appropriately to information that your conscious mind cannot detect. This shift in perspective can be profoundly liberating. You move from confusion and fear to understanding and acceptance. Furthermore, integration involves recognizing that you are not alone in this experience. Millions of people around the world experience anxiety, unease, and fear triggered by infrasound. Many people report experiences of feeling haunted, watched, or unsafe in particular locations without understanding why. Now that you understand infrasound, you can recognize that these are not individual failures or signs of mental illness. They are human responses to a very real physical phenomenon. This recognition can help you to feel less isolated and to develop compassion for yourself and for others who have had similar experiences. Finally, integration involves maintaining a sense of perspective and balance. Infrasound is real, and it does affect human consciousness and perception. However, infrasound is not the only factor that influences your emotional state and your experience of the world. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your relationships, your physical health, your sense of meaning and purpose, all of these factors also profoundly influence your well-being. A balanced approach to living with invisible frequencies involves addressing infrasound while also attending to these other dimensions of your life. As you move forward, remember that the goal is not to become obsessed with infrasound or to see it as the cause of all of your difficulties. Rather, the goal is to understand it as one of many factors that influence your experience. By understanding infrasound, you add a tool to your toolkit for understanding yourself and the world around you. You expand your awareness of the invisible forces that shape your life. You become more conscious and more intentional in how you respond to your environment and to your own nervous system. This consciousness and intentionality is the foundation for living a more peaceful, grounded, and authentic life. The deeper listening. Silence, safety, and the future of perception. As we near the end of this exploration, we arrive at a place of profound paradox. We have spent this entire journey discussing invisible frequencies that we cannot consciously hear, yet the ultimate destination of this journey is silence. Not the silence of the absence of sound or vibration, but the silence of a mind that is no longer disturbed by the constant chatter of fear and anxiety. The silence of a nervous system that has found its way back to a state of safety and rest. Throughout this exploration, we have discussed infrasound as something that triggers fear, anxiety, and distress. Yet there is another dimension to this story. Silence, true silence, is actually quite rare in the modern world. Most of us are surrounded by constant noise and vibration, traffic noise, mechanical hum from appliances and equipment, electromagnetic radiation from wireless devices. the subtle vibrations that pervade modern buildings and cities. In this context, silence becomes something precious and healing. When you are in a truly silent environment, free from the constant assault of noise and vibration, your nervous system can finally rest. Your amygdala can stand down from its constant state of alert. Your parasympathetic nervous system can activate fully. Your body can repair and regenerate. Your mind can settle. Your consciousness can expand. This is the healing power of silence. Yet silence in the modern world is increasingly difficult to find. Many people go through their entire lives without ever experiencing true silence. They are always exposed to some level of noise and vibration. This constant exposure can leave the nervous system in a state of chronic activation, constantly responding to threats that may not be actual threats. Over time, this chronic activation can lead to anxiety disorders, sleep disturbances, and a range of health problems. Understanding infrasound and its effects on the nervous system is, in a way, an invitation to seek out silence. When you understand how infrasound affects you, you become motivated to find environments that are free from anxiety-triggering frequencies. You become motivated to create spaces in your home and in your life that are truly quiet and restful. You become motivated to spend time in nature, away from the mechanical hum of civilization, where you can experience the natural frequencies of the earth and sky. The future of human perception and consciousness is intimately tied to our relationship with frequencies and vibration. As our technology becomes more sophisticated, we are creating new frequencies and vibrations in our environment. Wireless communication creates electromagnetic fields at frequencies that our ancestors never experienced. New machinery and equipment create vibrations at frequencies that did not exist before. The acoustic landscape of the modern world is fundamentally different from the acoustic landscape of the ancestral world in which our nervous system evolved. Some researchers and philosophers are suggesting that we are in the midst of an evolutionary moment. Our nervous systems are being exposed to frequencies and vibrations that they did not evolve to handle. Some people are developing sensitivities to these new frequencies. Some are experiencing health problems that they believe are related to electromagnetic radiation or other modern frequencies. Whether or not these concerns are fully justified, it is clear that the frequency landscape of the modern world is having effects on human health and consciousness that we are only beginning to understand. Looking toward the future, there are several possible directions that human perception and consciousness might evolve. One possibility is that humans will develop greater tolerance and resilience to the frequencies and vibrations of the modern world. Our nervous systems are plastic and adaptable. Over generations, humans might evolve to be less sensitive to infrasound and other frequencies that currently trigger anxiety and fear. Our brains might develop better filtering mechanisms to protect us from being overwhelmed by the frequency landscape around us. Another possibility is that humans will develop new technologies that help us to manage our relationship with frequencies. Devices might be developed that can detect infrasound and actively cancel it out, similar to noise-canceling headphones. Spaces might be designed with acoustic properties that minimize anxiety-triggering frequencies while enhancing relaxation-promoting frequencies. Therapies might be developed that use specific frequencies to heal anxiety and trauma related to infrasound exposure. A third possibility is that humans will develop a deeper conscious relationship with the frequencies that surround us. Rather than being passively affected by infrasound and other invisible frequencies, we might develop the capacity to consciously sense and work with these frequencies. We might develop meditation practices and other contemplative techniques that allow us to attune ourselves to the frequencies around us and to use them for healing and transformation. We might develop a new understanding of consciousness that incorporates our sensitivity to invisible frequencies as a natural and valuable part of human perception. What is clear is that our relationship with the invisible frequencies that surround us is going to be an increasingly important dimension of human experience and human consciousness. As our world becomes more technologically complex, and as we become more aware of the frequencies that affect us, we will need to develop new ways of understanding and working with these invisible forces. The deepest listening, the listening that this exploration has been leading toward, is a listening to the silence beneath all sound and vibration. This is the silence that mystics and contemplatives have spoken of for millennia. It is the silence that is not the absence of sound, but the presence of peace. It is the silence of a mind that is no longer driven by fear and anxiety. It is the silence of a nervous system that has found its way back to safety. This silence is available to you right now, in this moment. Even as infrasound vibrates around you and within you, even as your nervous system responds to invisible frequencies, there is a deeper silence beneath it all. This is the silence of your true nature, untouched by the constant flux of stimulus and response. This is the silence of your being, which remains present and peaceful regardless of what is happening in your environment or in your nervous system. As you move forward from this exploration, I invite you to seek out this silence. Create spaces in your life that are free from anxiety-triggering frequencies. Spend time in nature, where you can experience the frequencies of the natural world. Practice meditation and contemplative techniques that help you to access the silence beneath the noise. Develop awareness of the frequencies that surround you and of your body's responses to those frequencies. And remember that beneath all of the complexity and the invisible forces that shape your experience, there is a stillness and a peace that is your true home. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the invisible landscape of infrasound and perception. If this exploration has brought you greater understanding and inner peace, I would appreciate a like and a subscription to the Relaxing Science channel. Please share with us in the comments where you are listening from and what insights or feelings this exploration has brought up for you. Your engagement and your presence here matter deeply. We are all exploring this mystery together, and in sharing our insights and experiences, we help each other to find greater understanding and peace. As you continue on with your day and your life, carry with you the knowledge that you are not alone in your sensitivity to the invisible frequencies of the world. You are part of a vast community of conscious beings who are awakening to the deeper dimensions of existence. May you find peace, safety, and stillness in the silence beneath all vibration. Total.